right, y'all, welcome back and happy Tuesday. It's time for day 10 of fall camp news, notes, and thoughts. And at the end of this video, we're going to be breaking down what I think Tennessee needs to do in 2025 to help out with our passing game, because right now I think we're all worried about it. Y'all please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And at the end, whenever we do break things down inside of that film room, it's going to be very brief, but I do just want to highlight some things. If y'all want for us to do another video that goes way more in depth with it, we can just let us know down in that comment section. But we're going to be starting off with Tennessee's injuries. Biggest news is that Joshua Josephs finally came off of this list. He actually practiced out there today. I thought that he looked good. Looks like he's been picking up weight. And he should be fine, I think, for the starter versus Syracuse. So that's obviously huge news. Our defense is absolutely loaded. And I think that we're going to be wreaking havoc from game number one. Braylon Staley is still on this list. It sounds like the media actually saw him out there. He's working through what I think is a hamstring injury, but I'm hoping that he's going to be back for at least 1 week worth of practice heading up to that Syracuse game, because he's missed a lot of time. He needs to probably work himself back into actually playing and not being rusty, things like that. But he's a guy that Tennessee's going to have to lean on with the wide receiver room that is not very deep this year. Jeremiah's hurt. He's been added to this list. And he's a backup offensive tackle. I'm not quite sure what's going on with him, but he should be back, and hopefully at some point throughout this season, hopefully by the opening kickoff. But there were some players that were, obviously limited that did get to practice, maybe not full contact. It's just, there's no need for us to even talk about that because it does freak people out. So with all that being said, with the media today, we heard from Coach Sims, who is Tennessee's running backs coach, and he said that basically, they have 5 or 6 guys inside of that room that he really likes. I'm hoping that he's going to be rotating them more, but it just feels like he really likes that room. So that was, that was my strongest takeaway with Coach Sims. We also heard from Sam Pendleton. All right, and so Sam Pendleton, he might be our starting center, okay? Maybe starting guard, right guard, something like that. But there was a couple of takeaways for me. He said that he's getting used to playing at center, right? So he did a lot of practicing at center at a previous school, never played in an actual game. One of the things that he had to get used to was Tennessee's tempo. That's typically going to be tough on the offensive lineman, especially on the centers. And he also said that the offensive, that the centers had a problem with the snaps early on in fall camp, but they got that figured out, which is music to my ears, because that's the main thing that I was worried about, just with probably, the entire offensive line. So he also said that he's been studying a lot of Cooper Mays, which is a perfect person for him to be studying. He started on Tennessee's offensive line at center, I think since Coach Heupel's been here. And what else did he say? He said he's been gaining weight over the course of fall camp. For him to be a guy that's losing a whole lot of water weight, you would think that, George McIntyre could probably do the same thing, right? So we'll talk about that here in just a second. But William Satterwhite also spoke, and he said that he's mentally looking at things like he's the backup guy fighting for the starting spot, even though he's gotten most of the reps with the first team. Again, I think that Sam Pendleton will probably end up starting there. I don't know. I feel fine with either one of them, honestly speaking, just because now we have 2 guys that we can actually trust that are more like true centers. We haven't had that since Coach Heupel's been here. So I think that that's a positive thing that people don't too much talk about. I don't think that it's a problem where, hey, we have 2 guys that just can't play. It's 2 guys that look pretty good, but who's going to separate? He also just talked about walking around his house, kind of like doing some shadow work, some mental reps, and working on his hand speed, so on and so forth. And both of those offensive linemen talked about the offensive line working together as a unit. That's what the offensive line absolutely has to do. And as far as Peyton Lewis, he spoke and he said that he came up at about 207, or he played last year at about 207. Now he's up to about 215. He feels like he's gotten stronger, gotten faster. That's exactly what you want with the guy that's about 6'1". He can play 215 plus and keep on getting faster. He could probably get up to about 225 and keep on gaining speed. He's a real true NFL back, but there's several of them inside of that room. And you can just tell that he's really confident. He said he feels a lot more comfortable with the system. He's picking things up better, and he thinks that that's going to be one of his strengths in 2025. He wants to be an all SEC back. And he also said that they have a room full of dogs. And he's been studying Earl Campbell, who I think is a perfect comp for how he likes to run the football. So a lot of very positive things. And then we heard from Star Thomas, who said that he's been studying Tennessee's offensive scheme, trying to pick things up for 2 hours every single day. Even had his sister mimicking some of the signals and all of that. He feels like that's going to be one of his strengths, is that he's picking that up really, really quickly. That's going to be big for the tempo that Tennessee likes to run. And everyone knows that he can catch the football and do things out in space. But he said that one of the things that people don't know about him is he's going to be really, really good with his pass pro. That's music to my ears too, because Tennessee's running backs have not done the best at picking up blitzes and all of that within the passing game. So he said that he's really hard on himself, and again, he's picking up the signals way faster. I think that that's excellent. And he said that he's been studying Dylan Sampson and Jalen Wright. That's probably the 2 best running backs since Coach Heupel's been here, but we've got some other ones that are really good. So I think that Star Thomas is going to have a huge year. I think that Tennessee's going to have to utilize our running backs in a major way in 2025. All right. So let's talk about the actual practice notes. There's not that many. With the quarterbacks, the entire team practiced indoors. There was no routes on air, not because I don't think it was indoors, probably more just because of all of the talk with the media about the quarterback competition hasn't gone great, because what's come out here is that GMAC has looked the best and he's the youngest guy in that room. So people are really starting to panic. And of course, we will be breaking that thing down in just a second. But what I'm looking forward to, just with our quarterbacks from top to bottom, is who's going to take over, because we're only going to get to see one more like media covered practice on Thursday. Then our final scrimmage is on Friday. Leading up to that scrimmage and then coming out of that scrimmage, Tennessee needs to find someone that has that separation. Now, obviously, if GMAC has looked the best and he hasn't been named as the starter, it means that he's probably not going to get to start either way. But I also want to point out that I did hear this earlier today, that it sounds like GMAC has found out why he maybe couldn't hold on to weight. Okay, so he's going to be able to hold on to weight better. And I told y'all it looked like he had already started to gain some more weight. But I think that the staff is trying to put the weight on him as quickly as possible and get him ready for maybe like a month out. He could gain very easily 10 pounds within the next month, 10 to 15 pounds. If that's the case, he's the guy, and everything that we're about to be talking about is not even going to matter, because I think we'll be able to, operate the offense how we typically do, for the most part. But yeah, I mean, you would think that Joey Aguilar should be able to kind of like take the reins, because he's about winning this job, just because we got GMAC, who's looked great, but he's just not big enough yet. And then we've got Merck, who hasn't looked great. So I'm not giving up on anybody. They still have this whole week to get things figured out. But someone needs to win that starting job. It can't just be that, hey, someone's going to be named the starter because we don't have anybody else. I think that is a problem. So the only other thing that we'll talk about today, y'all, with the actual like practice notes, is with our offensive line. David Sanders, he was fully dressed, but he had his helmet off and he was watching the offensive line while the media was out there. I don't know if he actually went through practice once they left, but I think that this might just be more because they wanted to get a good look at some of the different players in different spots. So the starting offensive line while David Sanders wasn't out there was Lance Hurd at left tackle, Wendell Moy obviously at left guard. It was William Satterwhite at center, Sam Pendleton was at right guard, and then Jesse Perry was playing at right tackle. Couple of things here. What this tells me is they're trying to, I think that Jesse Perry is going to be our swing tackle at this point. Someone really needs to kind of like work themselves up to maybe help him out just in case, anything else happens, right? Just because I think he's going to be Tennessee's starting right guard. Now, there is some other things that could happen. It could end up being Sham at right guard or maybe at left guard. I don't know. And who knows who the starting center is going to be. But to me, it was just interesting that was our starters just while the media was out there earlier today. And then the second group was Bennett Warren at left tackle, Gage Ginther at left guard, Nick Moore at center, Max Anderson was at right guard, and then Brian Grant was at right tackle. So Sham, I don't know exactly where he fit into this whole deal. I think that he was out there practicing, but like I said, I mean, he should be one of the players that's pretty high up on our depth chart as far as our guards, but he can also play a tackle. That's actually what Tennessee got him for. So there is a lot of versatility on that offensive line, and I think it's going to be one of the strong points for Tennessee's team. So with all that being said, y'all, let's go ahead and talk about some of the changes that I think Tennessee needs to try to implement for our offense, especially with our passing game, and really just the offense from top to bottom in 2025. So number one, what we know about this team is that the defense is really, really deep. Like, you're looking at some guys up there that are studs. Those three players, those are three NFL players. Okay, this is probably another future NFL player. We have NFL players at every single spot. We're super deep. We've got veterans. We've got young players that we trust to be able to come in. Not worrying about Tennessee's defense. I think it'll be just as good, if not better, than it was last season from top to bottom. It should be for sure top 5 in the whole country, if not top 3, if not number 1. So you lean on your defense like we did last season, and then you lean on that running game, because it sounds like the run blocking with the offensive line has looked great. And then we've got a stable of different running backs, and I think that every single one of them could be utilized as pass catching threats too, right? So I think that that's how we lean on things. And also Tennessee's tight end room, very deep. I don't really care that some of the players are young. They've got the stature. They've got the size. I think that they're physical. We've got the tools that we need. Really, the only question marks have been quarterback, like we touched on, wide receiver. Got some players that are still banged up, probably just like a little bit rusty. They need to work themselves back into being good there, okay? And then also some with center. I think most of that might have been with the snaps and some other things, but I feel I'm okay about the center room. It's just mostly about Tennessee's quarterbacks and Tennessee's wide receivers. Now, a lot of folks have talked about Tennessee running a lot more 12 personnel, flexing out guys like Ethan Davis and Brame, using them as more like wide receivers, which we can do some of, but it's not going to work over the course of a long season, because teams will start to key in on that. It's too easy just as far as the scheme on defense to kind of slow that down. 12 personnel is more of like a run-first personnel. I think that Tennessee will continue to lean on the run. Last year, we were like 60% run to 40% pass. It should be very similar to that, if not even more run-heavy. But we've got to find a way with the offensive coordinator, with Coach Halsey, with Coach Heupel, with the whole offensive staff. They got to find a way to utilize all of our playmakers and make the mismatches that we need. And also, you have to understand, what is Joey Aguilar good at? What passes does he like to throw? What's he comfortable with? What's he having issues with? Because look, man, there's people that kind of, people talked about us being too hard on Joey Aguilar because of the pick six that he threw in the scrimmage. They said, well, it's just one pick six. That's not the only interception that Joey Aguilar has thrown over the course of fall camp. That's first and foremost. But also, before he got here, he was interception prone. And his interceptions look different than Hendon Hooker's did, right? We actually did a whole video breakdown on Patreon. Y'all can go and find that patreon.com/Bluechip Breakdown. And you can watch that for free, okay? And you can see what the differences were with Hendon Hooker's interceptions in 2020 versus Joey Aguilar's interceptions in 2024. It is a night and day difference, okay? There was a lot more to work with or from Hendon Hooker than there is from Joey Aguilar. He's got some really bad habits that the staff is going to have to get him out of. I think that the main thing that could really hurt this team and set us back in a major way is not just turnovers, but that's number one, but pick sixes. That would kill this team. We could go from still having a chance to maybe make it to the college football playoffs to, hey, man, we're going to be fighting to make it to a dadgum bowl. That would absolutely get us killed. So they've got to find a way to get him out of that first and find out, hey, what passes can we throw that, it's not going to make him throw those types of like interceptions and so on and so forth. So with all of that being said, let me show y'all what I think Tennessee needs to do a little bit differently in 2025. And what you're looking at are different personnel groupings over the course of since Coach Heupel's been here, right? So from 2021 all the way up to 2024. So with the 20 personnel, that's all on that left side. It's going to be 22. That's 2 tight ends, 2 running backs. So actually the first number is running backs, okay? The second number is tight ends. So you don't have that many wide receivers out there. I think actually you would only have 1 in that personnel. You can see how much we ran that over the, since Coach Heupel's been here. And then if you're looking at 21 personnel, that's 2 running backs with 1 tight end. And then you have 2 wide receivers. You can see how Tennessee did that. And then 20 personnel, you have 2 running backs, 0 tight ends with 3 wide receivers. And I think that Tennessee needs to do more of those things. I think that we need to utilize the playmakers that we have in the spots where we're really, really deep at. That's going to be tight end and running back for our offense. We've got to utilize those guys. And I wouldn't be mad if we do like some tackle eligible stuff too. We saw David Sanders doing some of that coming out of high school. I think that he's still a good enough athlete that we could do some of that. But that's going to have to be what the thought process is. We won't too much talk about like the pre-snap motions and all of that or movement, but that's something else that Tennessee really needs to do. It cannot be as simple and as basic or even anywhere near that as what it was for the past couple of years. Because if that's the case, we're going to probably struggle pretty heavily once we get deeper into the season, once we get into like SEC play. Now, 12 personnel, that's going to be 1 running back with 2 tight ends and 2 wide receivers. I think that Tennessee needs to run a lot of that. You can see in 2024, we ran it almost 30% of the time, way more than any other season. All right, so looking at 2025, what I think is that Tennessee needs to try to run 12 personnel, probably 35 plus % of the time, and then some version of 20 personnel, maybe 10 plus % of the time. Now, you can mix and match this, but I just think that at the end of the day, it needs to be close to about 45% of our snaps should be with, these players, these spots where Tennessee's deeper at, than, going back to having the field spread out so much. Now, obviously, it's still going to be spread out. Well, we've got 3 wide receivers. But I just think that until we feel comfortable with the passing game and with our wide receivers, I think that we need to try to keep them as healthy and as fresh as we possibly can by pretty much keeping them off the field. So with all that being said, let me go ahead and jump into this film room and show you how this is just going to be 12 personnel. Again, if y'all want for us to dive deeper into this, we can do the different like 20 personnel looks. And this is just going to be passing plays, all going to the tight ends. But we'll break down, a lot more and talk about individual players, so on and so forth. But we're just starting off with this 12 personnel, and you can see that this first play, everything is bunched up tight. So whenever you run 12, okay, like the more tight ends that you have out there, and really even the more running backs that you have out there, a lot of the times you're going to have more linebackers because these are run-heavy sets. So the defense knows that. They want to have people who can stop the run better. They take the secondary pieces off of the field. That's another part of the reason that running these types of, like personnel groupings will help out with our passing game down the field. So either way, y'all can see where the tight ends are. They're always going to be circled in yellow on every single play. So here, nice little wrinkle there. I'm not too much focusing on even what the tight ends are doing within these passing plays, but y'all can watch that. I'm more just talking about how the defense has to line up and what they have to honor and so on and so forth. So those are the 2 tight ends. This is, again, the same type of set, but we're spreading things out with this wide receiver at the bottom. What that does is it lightens up that box. Okay, it lightens it up just some because now you got to take a guy out so that he can play like in between that wide receiver and the end of the line of scrimmage. So you can run on this easier. Okay, so you can still run on it. You can, you can still run in this personnel. You can still pass in it. Obviously, these are all be passing plays. You can also get these types of looks, right? Where this is still 12 personnel, but this is an empty set, which means that the running back is lined up as a wide receiver. I absolutely love the thought of doing this because we have running backs who can play at wide receiver, who you can flex out, and you can have some mismatches. So you can see that we have man-to-man. That's what those red lines are. But then you have the open field up top. So you can go deep on this with three-step drop stuff. But these are easier matchups for our wide receivers to get open. And it should be easier for the quarterbacks to operate to throw these types of passes. You're typically not throwing pick sixes whenever it's just like straight up man-to-man coverage. And this will be cover zero. So this is how things start off. Now, you're going to see that we're going to bring the running back into the backfield. So this is no longer empty. It's still 12 personnel, but it's no longer empty. The defense changes their structure up some. All right, things change up just a little bit. So I'm going to show you how that looks here in just a second as soon as this pulls up. Boom. It's still man-to-man, but the players circled in that green, that's where I see some mismatches at. If you're looking at that slot wide receiver, I think that's actually Dante Thornton. He's probably going to be lined up versus safety, okay? And I think that any of our guys should be able to beat a safety one-on-one. If you can't beat a safety one-on-one, I mean, something might be wrong there. You know what I mean? So that's a matchup that you would expect for us to win. Now, there is a guy that's circled in white playing on the inside that takes away slants and some of those types of routes. So really, the only option there is vertical. But this is a very clear and easy picture for the wide receivers, for the offensive line, and for the quarterback, right? So who do you think can go win on that slot fade? In that slot that's circled in green? I'd say every single one of our guys should be able to do it. But then you also have that running back who could be a mismatch with that linebacker, just based off of who the linebacker is and who the running back is. I love all of our guys. I think that they should be able to beat any linebacker one-on-one. Like, that should be automatic. So pointing that out just to say that we can get some different looks. And obviously, you could still probably run on this. Now, if you had a threat of the quarterback's legs, that makes this even better. But Tennessee's not going to have too much of that in 2025. That's just not going to be a very realistic or viable option. So we can see how the operation looks here, right? That's an out. That's a quick out. So now, same thing. This is 12 personnel. You can see that we've got 3x1. So you've got 3 pass catching threats on this left side, only 1 up top. But pre-snap movement in motion is going to be huge. Get a guy over in freaking motion, and now what do you have? That's cash money all day long, baby. That is one-on-one. Look at all the field. See, now it doesn't too much matter. Hey, we can go inside or outside. Everyone should be able to win this matchup. Choose one. And that slant is there. I mean, the slant is there. You could go slant and go. You could just go straight fade. I think that for the fades, you want the taller guys or, whatever. It really doesn't matter. I'm just saying that is there all day long, just based off of some very, very small things. And the defense has got to honor how tight we are, because if not, we're going to run it down their daggum throat. So the running game has got to be very dominant out of any set, whether it's pistol, whether it's shotgun, doesn't matter. The running game has got to be extremely dominant. Teams have got to honor that. So this is the same set, just flipped, right? We've got 3x1. It's 3 up top, 1 on the bottom. So now we're showing the run. You can see how that box looks with the defense. Very, very tight, right? So they're biting on the run hard here. We're faking that block with the tight end. This is how you can use guys like Kit, because he can be flexed out some, but he's not going to be great out there. But in situations like that, you can utilize him all day long. So again, it just really goes back to playing our strengths and knowing how to, trick the defense, playing chess, not playing checkers. So now we're going 2x2, right? And to me, it looks like this is a very, very light box. So you should be able to run this with the running back or with the quarterback. Again, quarterback's legs won't be a huge option for us. Let me also show you all this. As the pressure is coming, will Joey Aguilar do that? Like, buy some time, get outside of that, and then throw it down the field without throwing it blindly. So one of the things that he has a really bad habit of, okay, and I'm going to show you this one more time. One of the things that he's had a really bad habit of is whenever that pressure comes right here, boom, he's just throwing that. Now, that's a player that's totally wide open, which should help him out. But at the same time, that's how pick sixes happen. He's going to have to learn how to use his legs some, even if it's just to throw the football out of bounds. You can't just, as soon as there's pressure, I'm going to throw this straight into coverage. That's going to get us killed. So this is another situation where we've got 2 tight ends flexed out wide on the same side with the wide receiver. You can see I've got green cash money there. So it really doesn't matter who this is, but you would probably want to have like your faster guys in this sort of a situation, because you can use those 2 tight ends as blockers on smaller players secondary players, pretty easy blocks. And then you've got a one-on-one situation with the safety or with, somebody and a guy that can move and can, make you miss out in space. Think about a Boot Carter, Braylon Staley, Jefferson, Travis Smith, really, Mike, any of those guys, right? Brazel, him too, any of them. And then you can also work some things off of this where if you've got a guy like Ethan Davis or Brain, who should definitely be able to pick up these types of blocks versus much smaller players, then they can fake the block and then go out deep on this fake screen and go. So there's a lot of things that can come off of this. And while I'm talking about it, I think that every single thing that Tennessee does with our running game, we need to have like 4 or 5 different variations of passing plays that come off of that look. That's going to keep the defense honest. We've got to do things like that. It hasn't been implemented that much in this system since Coach Heupel's been here. It really hasn't been part of it, okay? So you can see what we're doing here. This is now another scramble drill, like we talked about. This is something that Joey Aguilar needs to do better with, okay? He's not horrible at it, but whenever the pressure comes, you have to buy some more time, because if you do it, we've got players that can get down the field and make things happen, and that's exactly what we need from him. So with all of those things being said, y'all, I do see a world where, Tennessee can do some really nice things within our scheme, maybe adding a couple of wrinkles and maybe just switching up the personnel grouping some. But again, if y'all want for us to break that down even more, just let us know down in the comments section, and we'll come back with a lot more notes and a lot deeper of a breakdown. But that's gonna do it for me, okay? Y'all please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll be talking to y'all later on. Thanks, peace. Thanks for watching, and please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, because that keeps us growing inside of the YouTube algorithm. And if you did like this video, here's another one that you might also enjoy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.